If you're a real estate investor and are wondering how to raise and leverage private money to make more profit on every deal, then you're in the right place. On Raising Private Money, we'll speak with new and seasoned investors to dissect their deals and extract the best tips and strategies to help you get the money, because the money comes first. Now here's your host, Jay Connor.
Well, Kevin, I want to thank you so much for inviting me to come along and be here on your show, talk about my most favorite topic, something I'm very passionate about, and that's private money. And the reason I'm so passionate about it is because private money and private lending has had more of an impact on my real estate investing business ever since I started in 2003 than any other strategy that I have employed. So I'm known now as the Private Money Authority. I started sharing and teaching other real estate investors how I go about raising private money. And I'm passionate about that too, passionate about sharing and teaching with other real estate investors how to get all the money you'd ever want in funding for your real estate deals without ever asking for money. And of course, here in the show, we'll talk about that. How in the world do I have $8.5 million that I just use from project to project to project, single family houses, without ever asking anybody for money? So yes, Kevin, I'm excited to be here.
That's awesome. That's a great introduction. I love that. There's so much value you're bringing. I can't wait to get into the questions. So I'm just going to jump right in if you don't mind.
All right, let's jump.
Awesome. Thank you, Jay. So let's rewind to 2008. Your banker cut you off after the crash. What was going through your mind at the moment, and how did that challenge ultimately shift the way you do business today?
Man, Kevin, I remember it like it was yesterday, January 2009. So my wife, Carol Joy, and I, we started investing in single family houses full-time here in Eastern North Carolina in 2003. And for the first 6 years, Kevin, the only thing I knew to do to get my deals funded is go to the local bank, get on my hands and knees and say, please fund my deal, and show my financial statements. And, you know, they made me pull my skirt up and show my personal assets and pull the credit score. And, you know, that process worked out okay. It wasn't great, but it got my deals funded. Well, everything changed in January of 2009. I was sitting here at my desk, and, you know, I know it's hard for you to believe, Kevin, we actually still have handsets and cords here in North Carolina that are actually, they're actually attached to a telephone. Anyway,
that's crazy.
So I was sitting here, I had 2 houses under contract to purchase. And so I called up my banker. His name was Steve. And Steve and I had this conversation many, many times, you know, talking about deals that he was going to fund. And he had funded a bunch of deals. Anyway, during that conversation, Kevin, I learned like that the bank had closed my line of credit. So Steve, I tell him about the deals. He said, Jay, I'm sorry, the bank's closed your line of credit. I said, Steve, what in the world are you telling me? The bank has closed my line of credit. I got a great credit score. I've never been late on payments with you and your bank for now 6 years. Why are you closing my line of credit? He said, Jay, don't you know there's a global financial crisis going on right now? I said, no, but you just gave me a global financial crisis. I don't have a way to fund my deals. He says, sorry, we're not loaning money out to real estate investors. And of course, that was the thing that was going on with the global crash during that time. Well, you asked me, Kevin, what was I thinking when that happened? So I hung up the phone, I sat here, and Kevin, I want to share with you and your audience a very powerful question that I asked myself as I sat here at this desk after that conversation. And I'm telling you, this question will help anybody in your audience fix any problem they've got going on in their life. I don't care if that problem is financial, health, relationships, career, it doesn't matter. And by the way, Kevin, these people are running around, everybody's saying, oh, every problem's an opportunity. I want to throw up. I want to be the Kool-Aid guy that runs into the brick wall. I didn't have an opportunity. I had a problem. Let's face the facts. Now, the problem did become an opportunity, because if it hadn't been for that problem, you and I wouldn't even be visiting today here on your show. But at the moment, it's a problem that's got to be fixed.
Sure.
So here's the question I asked myself. I said, Jay, who do you know that can help fix your problem? And when I asked myself that question, I immediately thought of Jeff Blankenship, dear friend of mine and Carol Joy's. We know each other through gospel a cappella singing events. And so Jeff was investing in single family houses in Greensboro, North Carolina at the time. So I called him up and I told him what had just happened with my banker and getting cut off. He immediately said, Jay, welcome to the club. I said, what club is that I'm not sure I want to be a member of? He said, well, that's the club of having your banker shut you off. He said, my bank shut me down last week. I said, well, Jeff, how are you going to fund your real estate deals? He said, well, have you ever heard of private money? I said, no, I've never heard of private money. He said, have you ever heard of self-directed IRA companies or third-party custodians that will allow individuals to move retirement funds over to their company, and then they can lend that money out to us real estate investors, and the interest we pay them is either tax-free or tax-deferred? I said, Jeff, I don't have a clue what you're talking about. And I said, what's private money? He says, well, there's this gentleman down in Jacksonville, Florida by the name of Ron LeGrand. And he says he can teach us about private money. And I said, well, what's private money? He says, I don't know, but Ron says we can get a lot of it. And I said, well, let's go to his seminar. So that was my very first real estate investing seminar. I'd been in this business for 6 years, never been to a seminar. So I went to Ron LeGrand's seminar to learn about private money, and I did. I learned what private money is, which, by the way, when I say private money, I'm not talking hard money or hard money lending. I'm not talking about any kind of institutional money. I'm talking about doing business with individuals, human beings, just like you and me, that loans us money on our real estate deals, either from their investment capital and or their retirement accounts. So I learned about it, and I put my program together that I was going to go about teaching people in my own network, people I go to church with, people in the Rotary Club, people in Business Networking International. And you know what's interesting, Kevin? Today, I've got 47 private lenders investing in their deals, and not one of these 47 people ever heard of private money, private lending, or self-directed IRA accounts until I did the following. Until I put on my teacher hat, which says private money teacher.
Yes, sir.
And I just started teaching people in my own network what private money is, the program I've got, the interest rate that I'll pay on deals, and et cetera. And here's the interesting thing. You see, desperation has got a smell to it. There's a writer downer. Desperation's got a smell to it.
It sure does.
And what I mean by that is, here's part of the secret sauce. When talking to a new potential private lender in your own network and sharing with them what it is and how you pay high rates of return, if you bring up a deal that you need funded in that initial conversation, you already sound desperate without even trying to sound desperate. And so part of the secret sauce, how I raise all this money without ever asking for money, here's the secret. I separate the conversations between teaching the program and what the interest rate is and how they can get their money back in case of an emergency, et cetera, and then having a deal for them to fund. So if I can take another minute and I'll turn it back to you, Kevin, let me share the exact script that I say to my private lenders when it's time for a deal to get funded without me ever asking for money. Sure. So, Kevin, let's say you're one of my new private lenders. I've taught you the program. You know the interest rate. You're all excited about it. Yeah. And let's say that you had, hypothetically, $150,000 in a 401k at a previous employer and you didn't like the performance and you're sick and tired of the volatility of the stock market. So I taught you about self-directed IRAs. And so I introduced you to the self-directed IRA company that I recommend. And you've moved that $150,000 over to the self-directed IRA company with no penalty, no tax effect. You just moved it over. So now you can truly self-direct that investment. So I told you once that money got moved over, I was going to give you a call and put your money to work just as soon as possible. So you see how we're separating conversations and the activity of teaching the program. They've told you how much they've got to invest and then having a deal for them to fund. So you moved your money over. You're waiting for me to put your money to work. Here's the exact script. I call this the good news phone call, the good news phone call. So I call you up, you answer the phone, we have a little chit chat, and here's the exact script. I said, Kevin, I've got great news for you. I can now put your money to work. I've got a house under contract in Newport that's got an after repaired value of $200,000. Now, the funding required for this deal is $150,000. I know that matches up to the funds you've got in the self-directed IRA account. Closing's going to be next Wednesday, so I'll need for you to wire your funds to my real estate attorney's trust account by next Tuesday, and then we will close on Wednesday. I'm going to have my real estate attorney email you the wiring instructions. That's the end of the conversation. Let's unpack what I just did. Number one, the most stupid question to ask you would be, do you want to fund the deal? Of course you want to fund the deal.
Yeah.
For three reasons. Three big reasons you want to fund this deal without me even asking you if you want to. Number one, you've moved your money over and you trusted me and you moved your money over to the self-directed IRA company and you're counting on me to put your money to work. Well, I told you I would. So number one, you're looking for me to put your money to work. Number two, you're not making any money until I put your money to work. And number three, you know I'm not going to bring you a deal to fund unless it matches the criteria of the program that I already taught you. You already know the maximum loan to value is 75% of the after repair value. Well, I told you that in the script. I told you I got a house under contract in Newport with an after repair value of $200,000. Funding requires $150,000, matches up to what you got. That's 75% of the after repaired value. Now, just as a side note, my maximum loan to value is not 75% of the purchase price, 75% of the after repaired value. So that's why I'm always able to bring home a big check when I buy without taking any of my own money to the closing table. I mean, the question is, who wants to get paid to buy houses, right? We all do. Well, I never have to take any money to the closing table. That's one big reason I love private money. But anyway, that's the script as to how to get your deal funded without ever asking for money. And again, it's by separating teaching and offering the opportunity and then having a deal to fund. You know, the traditional way to borrow money is you go to the mortgage company or the hard money lender. We're not talking hard money here. Private money is just a one-on-one transaction between you and the private lender. And, you know, one thing you got, you know, one question I get all the time, Kevin, from real estate investors is, how do I get, what's the first thing I need to do to start raising private money? And I tell them, the first thing you need to do is own the real estate between your ears.
Yeah.
In other words, get your mindset right. And the mindset you got to have is there's no begging, no pleading, no selling, no chasing. Instead of applying for a mortgage, for goodness sakes, you're already approved. You're already approved. Instead of applying for a mortgage, you're offering an opportunity and a mortgage.
I like that. And it's quick. You said, like, when you make that call, you're closing on Wednesday, or like, that's like, you know, within a week. Like, is it that really that fast all the time?
All the time.
Yeah. That's awesome.
Sometimes I close in 3 days. And, you know, time kills deals. What I mean by that is the more time that goes by between talking with a motivated seller of a property and then actually closing on that deal, all things can go wrong.
A lot.
So I want to close on it now.
Yeah. How do you find those properties? How, is it you that are going out to look for those motivated sellers?
Right. So how do we find motivated sellers? Well, I can tell you where we don't find
Okay, that's cool.
We don't find them in the multiple listing service. I haven't
Yeah.
bought a property out of the multiple listing service since COVID. I mean, it's been over 5 years. So how do we find them? Well, there's a number of different ways. First of all, we direct mail every pre-foreclosure in our market. So we offer solutions to people that are facing foreclosure. And that's a whole nother conversation, but it's not about taking advantage of people. It's all about leading with a servant's heart and putting money in their pocket, even when they'll sell to us for what they owe. So we direct mail to all foreclosures. We direct mail to properties that are inherited. So inherited properties. And then we have 7 different vendors that give us what's called Google Pay Per Lead. Google Pay Per Lead. So these are people that are going on Google searching for someone to buy their house quickly in its as-is condition. We do outbound phone calling to lists. We do other direct mail campaigns. We just started using a brand new service. It's the very first AI driving for dollars service that provide. They got 16 different points, visual points on a property. So from Google Earth and Google Maps, AI is able to determine what degree of distress that the property has. So we just are starting to direct mail to that list. So those are the main ways that we find it.
I love it. I love it. All right. Well, man, so cool. I want to dig more deep, but that'll be towards the end about the AI and technology and stuff, because I'm really into that stuff. So, we'll I have one towards the end though for you. So, so you talk about buying property without using any of your own money. For those skeptical listeners, how does that actually work in practice?
Sure. So let me give a specific example of not using your own money. In fact, it's even better than that. As I said a second ago, you bring them a big check when you buy. So the best way to explain this is give an example. So let's use the same example of the property that I was using in the script to get the deal funded by you, the private lender. Mm-hmm. So let's say you've got a property with an after repaired value of $200,000. Now, bear in mind, I know in Sacramento, California, you can't even get an outhouse for $200,000. And I don't know, Kevin, you're so young, you may not even know what an outhouse is. But anyway,
no, I did.
You can't even get an outdoor toilet for $200,000.
It's really rough.
but anyway, for easy calculations, here's how. Just add a couple of zeros and decimals to this example, and you'll be in California.
Sure, exactly.
So if you got a property that you're going to buy and it's got an after repaired value of $200,000, if it's distressed, which most of the properties I buy are distressed, then I'll buy that house all day long for less than 50% of the after repaired value because it's in some type of distress. So, but let's make the math easy. Let's say I'm buying it for $100,000, 50% of after repaired value of $200,000. Well, that property might need $30,000, $35,000 in renovation, rehab. So I buy for $100,000. It's going to need renovation of $35,000, let's say, and the after repaired value is $200,000. Now, back to our example, I can borrow up to 75% of the after repaired value when I purchase. So when I go to the closing table, the private lender is going to wire in to the closing agent, might be a title company, it's real estate attorneys here in North Carolina. So they're going to wire to the closing $150,000. You see, this sort of private money, there's no draws. We're getting all the money up front that we're borrowing. So $150,000 is wired in to the closing agent. So now we go to the closing table. So I go to close. There's $150,000 sitting there to fund the deal. $100,000 of that money is going to go to the seller of the property. So I'm buying it for $100,000. Now that leaves $50,000 sitting there which my real estate attorney calls on her check stub excess cash to close. And I love me some excess cash. So we closed the deal. Now I'm going to get a check from my real estate attorney for $50,000. I took no money to the closing table, less a little bit for closing costs. So I might get a $49,000 check. And I'm going to take that $49,000, put it in my checkbook, and now I'm going to spend $35,000 of that $49,000 on the renovation. Now I still got extra money left over. $14,000 is left over that I can use for carrying costs. I can use it any way I want to. I can go on a trip and have a nice weekend if I want to. Or if I'm making monthly payments to my private lender, interest checks, which sometimes I do. Sometimes I just let the interest accrue. But if I'm making interest checks to my private lender, whose money am I using to make their interest checks? Their money.
Mm-hmm.
So let's stop. And now let's stop and think about this. If I was accruing interest, for goodness sakes, I buy the property. I take no money to the closing table. I bring home a $50,000 check. I'm making no interest payments. I'm going to use 35 of it for renovations. And got 14,000 left over. Hey, look, and then I go to sell it and cash out. Well, let's say I sell it for 200,000. I still owe my private lender 150,000 because I'm not paying principal and interest payments. I'm just either accruing the interest or making interest-only payments, which is a win for them and a win for me. It's a win for them because they make more money because they're keeping all of their principal invested until I cash out the property. It's a win for me if I'm making payments because that's lower monthly payments when it's interest only. And so then I sell it for 200. I still owe the private lender 150. So now the only thing coming out of that 200 is say I got a realtor commission, which would be $10,000. I paid 5%. So less a little bit of carrying costs. I got 40,000 when I sell it. I had 14 or 15 when I bought it. That's $50,000 between the front end and the back end of that deal, all funded with private money. My land gets me excited.
Just in one deal.
One deal.
Just in one property. Yeah.
One
That's
property.
awesome. Yeah. I love that. That's huge. And on the front and the back end. So you can, so you're making interest only loan or payments. Is that typically a good idea for someone who's making a loan like to a bank or payments to a bank? Like usually that's like not the best idea, but it sounds like when it's you're doing this as like an investment rollover type of thing that like it's a win-win like you're talking about for both sides, because it's a lower payment for you and then their investments still their full interest is still in amount of interest is still in on the property. So that's pretty cool.
Yeah,
I like
that's
that.
the reason I do it is it makes them more money and it helps my cash flow.
I like that. Very cool. And so your first private money conversation resulted in $250K. What did you say in that pitch and what made it so effective? Was it the same one that you just gave us?
No, very different.
Okay.
Very different.
Nice.
And I actually didn't do a pitch. So how in the world did I get $250,000 in the very first conversation? Well, here's how it happened. It was on a Wednesday night at Bible study here in Morehead City at the Church of Christ. And Carol Jo and I went there. We'd been a member of the church for a while. And I walked in. Now, this was after I'd been cut off from the bank, but I put my program together as to what I was going to teach potential private lenders. And so I walked in the foyer, and there was a gentleman there by the name of Wayne. And I walked up to Wayne, and I said, Wayne, I got something I want to visit with you about confidentially after Bible study tonight. Have you got a few minutes we could get together? He said, sure. So we had Bible study. We got together. We went down to the nursery and shut the door. Here's exactly what I said to Wayne. I said, Wayne, you know everybody in this town. And he did. He was the Zenith television dealer in Morehead City, North Carolina. Now, Kevin, I know you don't know what or who the Zenith dealer. You do?
I do. I actually know, like, I've never actually seen or, like, I just know of them, yes.
Wow. Because if you've never heard of it, that means you're too young to remember life before Walmart came to town. And that's where you buy your TVs. Anyway, the Zenith dealer, you bought your TV from the Zenith dealer. They would finance it for you, and they would actually repair it instead of you throwing it in the trash and going and buying another one like you do today. Anyway, Wayne had put a TV in everybody's house. He'd put a TV in every hospital room in the hospital. He was totally plugged in with the Rotary Club. So anyway, I said, Wayne, you know everybody in this town, and here comes the magic phrase. I said, Wayne, I need your help. I said, you see, I have now opened up my real estate investing business by referral only, and I'm now paying insane high rates of return to my investors. When you run across somebody that's complaining about the low interest rates and CDs in the local bank and the volatility of the stock market, would you refer them to me and I'll tell them about my program? What do you think Wayne said? Wayne says, well, now, Brother Jay, what you got going on there?
Yeah.
And I said, well, what do you mean? He says, well, what kind of rate are you paying? And I said, well, Wayne, are you saying you might be interested? He said, well, I might be interested. I said, why would you might be interested? He said, well, we're only making 3% in the local bank, and we're losing money in the stock market. What kind of rate are you paying? And I said, well, that sort of depends on the deal. What sounds high to you? And he said, well, making 3% in the bank, I don't know, maybe 5 or 6%. And I said, Wayne, I can't pay you 5 or 6%, but I can pay you 8%. He said, put me down for $250,000. So the next day, I went to his and his wife's home, and over 2 cups of coffee, I explained the entire program, maximum loan to value, how you can get your money back early in case of an emergency, the interest rate that I'm going to pay, which, by the way, was 8%, and it still is, the length of the note, the frequency of payments. And I had on my teacher hat, right?
Yeah.
I had on my teacher hat. So I was teaching the program with no deals associated with the conversation. And after 2 cups of coffee, that $250,000 became $500,000 that they pledged. And so then I did put their money to work right away. But let's unpack what I did.
Yeah.
You notice I didn't ask Wayne for any money. Didn't ask him for any money. I asked him for his help to spread the word that I now have an opportunity that I'd love to share with other people. And by the way, over the years, Wayne referred so many people to me. In addition to he and his wife being a private lender. You know, one thing I hear people saying all the time is they got a fear of rejection. Let me answer that with a question. The question is, how can you be rejected if you're not asking anybody for anything?
That's a good point. Especially
well, I did ask for his help. I did ask for his help. And,
but when we as humans, when you ask someone for help, they want to reciprocate and actually help you. So like they peek their ears up. They're not like trying to run the other way. They're like, oh yeah, how can I help you? So
exactly. God created us to serve. And most people, as you just said, Kevin, want to help everybody else. So I just asked him to spread the word. And now he's automatically interested. And then he did spread the word. And so it's just a beautiful thing.
Just took off from there. And plus he can say in his own experience how awesome it's going. Not just like, hey, like I've heard, like he's just like, I put in 500K myself and it's been amazing, you know, so.
Absolutely.
And you also mentioned that as you were explaining it, that if emergencies came up, that they could withdraw their money if needed.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That's
I give them what's called a 90-day call option, which means I'll put in the promissory note, if you got any kind of emergency that comes up, just give me a 90-day notice. That gives me plenty of time to replace your private lending funds with another one of my private lenders' funds. And I also tell them in most programs like this, like in a bank, if you call the note due early, there's a penalty. Mm-hmm. You know, if you call the note due early and I see at the bank, they've got a penalty. But I tell them in this program, there is no penalty because I just like to make it easy for our private lenders to do business with us.
That's huge. That's big. Yeah, a lot of people would love to be able to do that. to be able to penalize is stupid, I think. Sorry. Okay, so you rehabbed over 500 homes. In your experience, what's one rehab deal that stands out as a turning point in your investing career, and why is that?
Well, that goes back to even before I got involved with private money. This goes back to when I was like really making stupid mistakes. And I made a lot of them. I mean, I've got to screw it up to get it right. And so the rehab that was a turning point was a condominium. We live here in a resort area, and there was a condominium, oceanfront condominium, over at Atlantic Beach that I bought. It was a foreclosure. And the big mistake I made, Kevin, is my intention was to flip it. That was my intention.
Mm-hmm.
Well, by the time I finished it, put it on the market, the market had started to turn, and I was stubborn, and I wouldn't lower my price to get that thing sold and to get it going. And so it started becoming a bloodbath with the carrying cost and no income coming in on it.
Yeah.
So I had to stop the blading to some degree. So I put it on the rental market. When you see those condominiums on the beach, they only rent for 13 weeks out of the year.
Oh.
This was a 2-bed, 2-bath. I mean, it rented every week for $1,400, $1,500 a week. But that's only 13 weeks. All those other weeks, no income coming in. So it was a bloodbath. What was the lesson that I learned? Here's the lesson. Even if your intention is to flip a property, run the numbers and see what you could bring in per month in case you're stuck with that property.
If you need a pivot.
And what's your carrying cost? And if you can't cash flow it with the rent, if you're stuck with the house, don't do the deal in the first place.
That's a great point. Not just like be, one kind of single-minded one thing, and then kind of like exit strategy. Like, like if that doesn't work, I can get out this way. So that's good. You've learned the hard way.
Plan B and a plan C and a plan D. It's called, you need multiple exit strategies.
There it is. And you fortunately have had to fail and learn the hard way,
And I still learn lessons. Well,
but that's how you become successful. You have to fail to succeed. And that's, at least from everything that I've read and heard and
there's a great book by John Maxwell that he wrote years ago. I got to meet Mr. Maxwell a few weeks ago. He's a phenomenal human being. But anyway, a very popular book he wrote is called Failing Forward. And he says that a big part of his success is that he just fails more than anybody else. It means he tries more new things than anybody else. Therefore, he's got a lot more wins as well. And my good friend David Meltzer, he says he doesn't believe in failures. He just believes in lessons learned.
I like that. I've heard Denzel Washington was doing some type of speech for like a college for graduation. And he told a cool story about the same thing, basically fail forward. And you're just basically moving forward, and everything's all, a learning process. So
that's right.
That's huge. So you average over $82,000 in profits per deal. What's your secret to maintaining such strong margins in today's market?
The secret is buy them right and buy them at deeply discounted prices and let the math do the decision. One mistake new real estate investors make is they let their emotions get involved in what they should purchase or pay for a property. And so I stick very, very close to my buying formula, which I call the maximum allowable offer formula. And I just let the math make the decision. I stick to that formula. And when I'm paying all cash for private money, I know what is the most that I can pay for that property.
And would you say that you keep emotions out of it too?
Absolutely. The math makes the decision.
Sure. I get that. That's what a lot of people, investors, have told me. It's just like just stick to whatever it is that you are, you went in planning on doing, like that's the math, like you're saying, the math, like the numbers, there's a reason why it's worked, and you don't deter from that. And so yeah, I agree 100%. It's awesome. So what are the biggest misconceptions investors have about using private money, and how do you debunk them?
Well, the biggest misconception is they think they got to pitch a deal. I've never pitched a deal in my life. By the way, I explained earlier, I don't pitch deals.
Right.
I first teach what's the program, and then I bring deals for the private lenders to fund, and they're always waiting for the good news phone call. So the misconception is you got to beg and chase and sell and persuade. There's none of that. It's all about serving and no selling.
Private money is like, and I'm glad you cleared that up. Private money and hard money is different. I mean, like they're two totally different things. And
hard money is institutional money.
Yeah.
Normally there's a broker involved, or they've gone out and the hard money lender has raised money from private lenders, investors, into their fund. And then their fund, in turn, loans it out, charging origination fees and et cetera to the real estate investor. In this world, in contrast, it's a one-on-one transaction between the borrower and the lender.
And the interest rate, like, is that determined like before the borrower is talking to the lender, or is it like
that's part of what I teach?
That's what you gotcha.
That's what no, it's not negotiable.
Okay, got it.
That's what I'm on. This is my program.
Yeah.
My program. So I get to set the interest rate.
Sure.
I get to set the term, and they love it. But again, I don't have my teacher hat on when I'm to teach an existing private lender. They already know this work.
Sure.
They want to negotiate. I'm not negotiating.
It makes sense. You're the one that brought it to it. Would you say it's kind of hard to find private, like if you're an investor trying to find private money, if you didn't have, is it a little bit harder to do compared to like a hard money institutional lender?
Well,
I mean, like,
you mean is it easier to raise the money?
No, I meant like if they didn't come to you because like you're the one that goes and does the deal and like teaches everybody all that kind of stuff. Like if they didn't have a way to find out and learn all that kind of stuff, like would it be pretty hard to find the private money deals?
Well, yeah, you got to know what you're offering.
Yeah, sure.
And of course, that's what I teach the real estate investors. Like, what's the whole private lending program that I have that they can duplicate to just teach to other people? But of course, anybody can come up with their own private lending program they want to offer the opportunity to anybody.
So is your program only for 401ks, or what about people with like pensions? So like I also work for the state of California.
Oh yeah.
So you work with people like that?
Of course.
Pensions?
Any kind of retirement funds, and it doesn't have to be retirement funds.
No.
It just be investment capital.
Investment capital.
Like instead of putting your money into CD in the local bank, that's just investment capital.
Yeah.
You can be a private lender with just investment capital as well.
I love it. Cool. Okay. So you help over 2,000 real estate investors one-on-one. What's the most common mistake you see new investors make when trying to raise price?
They talk too much.
Yeah.
They diarrhea of the mouth.
I've heard that term. I love that.
And it's like, and when you talk too much, you sound like you're begging. You just simply are having a conversation, sharing with people what private money is, how they can do it, teaching, the opportunity with the details of it, such as the interest rate, how they can get their money back early and that kind of thing. And like, the role play you and I did a little while ago, on me calling you up and giving you the, what I call the good news phone call. You see how short that was? I mean, I didn't tell you about the property. I didn't tell you what kind of repairs are needed. I didn't give you the physical address. I didn't give you the purchase price. I didn't give you all that mess. All I needed to tell you was those points. I told you where it was located, the community. I told you the after repaired value. I told you the amount of that you're going to invest. Now, you know, that's 75% of the after repaired value. And when the closing is, in other words, when have you got to have the money wired? That's all you need to know. And I can tell you on the second call and the third call and the 10th call, the only thing you want to know as the lender is how much do you need and when do you want it? So, yeah, they talk too much.
It's probably like nerves too. I can
Of course
see,
it is.
Yeah. I mean, I do that all the time. I do it all, like here on the podcast. I just like, you know, it's just a human habit.
That's right.
So I can see how that happens quite a lot. So, for someone just getting started, what's your go-to strategy for finding their very first private lender?
Yeah, I like to start. And what I teach is the first step out of 5 steps. That we don't have time to go into all the 5 steps here. It's in my book that I'll offer your audience. But,
yeah, I'm going to buy one, by the way.
Oh, I'll fix you up. I know somebody that can make that arrangement. But the first step is make your list. Well, who should be on your list of your potential private lenders? Well, they're in your cell phone. I say start with people who are retired, because retired people might have a retirement fund or retirement funds that they're not happy. Like, you know, in today's market, the stock market's all volatile. If they've got the retirement funds in the stock market, they just may not be happy with all that, you know, that's going on. Sure. So I say start with retired people. To teach. One quick way to do it, when I was starting out, I put on a private lender luncheon. I invited 20 potential private lenders, everybody that I knew in my social network, people I go to church with. And it takes the same amount of time to teach the program to 20 people as it does one. So there's 1-to-1 and then there's 1-to-many. So I bought them lunch and I told them my program after they finished eating lunch, which only takes 20 minutes to teach it. And I raised $969,000 at just that one 60-minute luncheon.
Well, I'd say that's a pretty good profit margin, huh?
But pretty good use of your time anyway.
Awesome. That's huge. So you now work less than 10 hours a week thanks to automation. Let's get into this. Like, what systems or tools have made the biggest impact freeing up your time? Especially like maybe AI, like you were talking about.
Yeah. So what's freed up my time the most is the CRM, the customer relation management software that we use. I've had a full-time acquisitionist for 19 years, the same acquisitionist. Well, one of the world's an acquisitionist. Her name is Kim. She talks to all the sellers, all the motivated sellers that are responding to our marketing. So how and I never talk to her. I might talk to her 3-4 times a year. Yeah. And she earns over $100,000 a year, for goodness sakes. And so, so we communicate in the software. Mm-hmm. And so when that lead comes in from either Google or they call our operating service by Zapier, that lead automatically goes into the system. Now here's where AI kicks in. As soon as that lead goes into the software, AI immediately, within less than 5 minutes, shoots a text, a very personal text that looks as though it's coming from Kim, the acquisitionist. And that text is saying, hey, we just got a notification that you're interested in selling your house. Can we get the physical address of where the property is located? So they're texting back the answer. And you see, they got that text in less than 5 minutes, not within 20 seconds. That sounds automated. But, 3 minutes, 4 minutes, that text goes out. Mm-hmm. And so follow-ups are important. The AI texting, There's 3 texts per day, 3 days in a row if we're not getting any response. And then when Kim, the whole objective there is to get them on the telephone, for Kim to get them on the telephone. And as soon as she's got them on the telephone, she turns the AI bot off.
Yep.
Right? So now she's talking to them. Now she talks to them, confirms the information, and then she fills out the lead sheet in the CRM in the software. And so it's driven by Go High Level. You've probably heard of Go High Level, GHL. So it's a Go High Level software program that's customized for real estate investors. And as soon as that goes in there, well, then she moves it over. It says lead sheet J review is that pipeline. So now I get a notification that the software has got a lead for me to review. So I go and I review the lead. I look at the numbers, and in less than 60 seconds, more like less than 30 seconds, I'm able to tell if I want our realtor to give us the value, the after repaired value estimate. So if so, I just move it over to realtor value. Now the software automatically emails our realtor in whichever category, county. And now the realtor's got the email to send us the value. Within 24 hours, the realtor sends us the value back. And now it's in the software with the value. Now I get a notification that says J Review Realtor Opinion. I look at it in less than 60 seconds. Now I decide if our team should go look at the property. Go, I got to estimate repairs before I make any kind of offer. So I move that over. Kim gets a notification to arrange an appointment with the team, being the realtor and our project manager, to go look at the property. So now she sets up an appointment with them and the seller. Now they go look at the property and estimate repairs. Now the estimation of repairs comes back to Kim by email from the project manager. She copies and pastes that and puts it in the software. Now I get a notification that I now have the budget to review.
Yeah.
So I look at that at the bottom line. Now I take 10 seconds and run my formula as to what's my maximum allowable cash offer. I type that in the software. Now Kim is notified, make offer. Now Kim calls up the seller, makes the offer, and negotiates the deal.
She does all the negotiating.
She does all the negotiation. I'm just telling her what the deal is.
What the numbers? Yeah. Okay. Very cool. And there's no, that's a hard stop right there. There's no going over that number.
Well, yeah, why should I?
Yeah, no. I just, as far as her,
Oh,
like
right.
she
doesn't
gets
have
that.
any, she doesn't have any like leeway on that. Yeah, correct.
Yeah, okay, that makes sense. That's pretty cool. So you turned what you felt like a setback into a 7-figure business. Looking back, what advice would you give to your 2003 self just starting out in real estate investing?
If you're starting out in real estate investing, don't do this thing alone, for goodness sakes, like I did. I lost hundreds of thousands of dollars by not getting a mentor or a coach. So get you one locally. It doesn't have to be me, it can be somebody else, but get a trusted coach and mentor to hold your hand if you're starting out. And by the way, I run a high-level mastermind group in a private money community, and I'm thinking of Harriet and Stu Baldwin that live up in Elvira, New York. They came and joined the mastermind group about 4 years ago. They've been great members. Well, they had already raised over $1 million in private money when they joined the mastermind group and had over 100 houses in their portfolio. But they knew that, we can learn from each other no matter how much experience you've got in the business. So I've got people in my high-end mastermind group that are brand new, and I've got others that have done a handful of deals, and I got others that have done many, many, many deals. So yeah, and answer your question, get a coach.
I like that. That mastermind sounds awesome. Just having like-minded people to kind of bring you up, it makes all the difference with, not just investing, but like just learning and getting why just try, like you're saying, do something alone and lose hundreds of thousands of dollars potentially, or just learn from your mistakes and get a coach and learn from their mistakes and, skip all that process.
That's right. That's right. For sure.
Awesome. Well, Jay, I can't thank you enough for coming on here and providing so much value. Is there anything that you wanted that we left out, you want to talk about, or that you wanted to cover?
No, I think we covered it great. I'd love to give my book to you and your audience.
I would love that. That would be awesome. So I will be the first in line to get that. I will pay for that shipping, or I'll pay for the full thing. I didn't even know that. I saw that you had it, but I didn't realize that it was on Amazon. So that's pretty
Yeah,
cool.
that's right. So the book is entitled Where to Get the Money Now, Where to Get the Money Now. And the subtitle is How and Where to Get Money for Your Real Estate Deals Without Relying on Hard Money or Institutional Lenders. And I'll autograph the book. I will mail it 3-day delivery express to the United States Postal Service. And it's $20 on Amazon, but don't get it on Amazon. I'll give you the book for free, just cover shipping. And you can pick up the book at www.jayconner.com/book. So I'm an ER, not an OR. Again, that's Jay Conner, JayConner.com/book. And I'll also include 2 free tickets that are valued at $3,000 to my upcoming private money conference. And all the information about the conference I'll send along with the book as well. And then finally, come check out my podcast. I'm now in the 8th year of my podcast, which is titled, we're in the 700 episodes.
Wow.
And the name of the podcast, believe it or not, is Raising Private Money
There you
with
go.
Jay Conner. So whatever your favorite podcasting platform is to listen to podcasts, just search
You're on
for
it.
Raising Private Money and you'll see me pop right up. I have 2 shows a week, and I'm always interviewing other real estate investors who have raised private money and interviewing them to find out how they have gone about raising their own private money.
I like that, Jay. I'm gonna start listening. It's always so. It's not the video. It's just the audio
No, it's both.
podcast.
So
It's both? Oh, cool.
on the podcast platforms, it's just audio.
Yeah.
But we
you have
also
a
have
video
it
also.
on. We also have it on my YouTube channel as well.
Perfect. Awesome. Well, then I will put all that stuff on the screen and get all your tags and your website and everything on the screen so everybody knows where to find you and your information. So, again, I can't thank you enough, Jay. Been amazing and a lot of great content and information and value. I really appreciate it. Thank you so
Kevin,
much.
thank you so much for having me. God bless you.
Are you feeling inspired by the knowledge you gained in this episode? Then head over to jayconner.com/moneyguide. That's JCONNER.com/moneyguide and download your free guide that shares 7 reasons why private money will skyrocket your real estate investing business right now. Again, that's jayconner.com/moneyguide to get your free guide. We'll see you next time on Raising Private Money with